Yeah, a lot's been made of the deal in Arizona with the immigration law, the anti-illegal immigration law. Parts of it, most of it, the big parts of it being struck down. Thought we'd chat with Tim Graham. He's Media Research Center's with the Media Research Center, and we talk about the liberal media and the Arizona deal, because most of the people out there agree with Arizona. They want this in their own state, but the liberal media has spun this thing to make you believe that that's not the case. Tim, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good, good. So let's talk about the liberal media. We both assume that there is one, correct?
Yes, I mean, there are actually sort of two branches. There is the liberal media now, which doesn't care if anybody knows whether it's liberal, like MSNBC. And then there's the so-called, what we know is the traditional so-called mainstream media, which pretends not to be liberal, but not very successfully.
Right. Like the CNNs, Washington Post, people like that?
Right, exactly.
And, of course, we saw from this journalist scandal out there that these people, we know exactly how they feel about conservatives. The thing about it is that, I know a lot of conservatives. That's the circle of friends that I have. I don't know but a handful maybe that are so vitriolic and hateful of liberals, like the liberals are in general, it seems to be, especially liberals in the mainstream media. They just they despise, hate, and they want to see people die on the other side, don't they?
It's a little shocking to see this National Public Radio producer in L.A. saying, "Oh, if Limbaugh died in front of me, I'd laugh maniacally." Well,
yes.
I'm sure she wasn't really happy that hit the whole internet.
No, because they're supposed to be unbiased on NPR, as we all know.
Yeah, especially since they're taking our tax dollars to make it go.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about the liberal media when it comes to the Arizona deal. I mean, what's your take on all that? I mean, we all know that most of the people out there like this law that Arizona passed, but what is the liberal media telling us?
Well, we studied 120 stories from April 23rd to July 25, from when it really broke up until this week. And on ABC, CBS, and NBC, their evening news shows and their morning news shows. And what we found was in those 120 stories that 77 of them tilted in favor of the amnesty for the illegal aliens. We found 8 that gave more time to the people, to the popular viewpoint, and 35 were neutral. So I mean, it's like a 10-to-1 ratio. Then when you actually count up the sound bites, it was about 2-to-1. So that the amnesty side had 216, and the uphold the law, the border control side had 107. So, you just look at it and you say, well, obviously they have a point of view, and they're not doing a very good job of disguising it.
Yeah, I don't even know they want to disguise it anymore. I mean, they feel like they're on a mission, they have an agenda, and they don't really care who knows.
And when you have some of these stories that I did, where the soundbite count is 7-0 or 10-1. And the sympathetic subject is a guy who's moving back to Mexico, and his 15-year-old son is crying because he's going to have to leave all his high school friends and go back to Mexico. And that's the way that they pitch it. It's like, these fiends in Arizona are breaking up friendships and ruining people's lives.
Which that's the exception, not the rule, of course, as we all know.
Well, and they don't do a story where it's like, here's a family who lost their dad because they got hit by a drunk driver who was illegal. Right. I mean, they're not going to do that story because it's just not the right kind of emotionally loaded propaganda that they wanted to put on.
It's not the right angle. I mean, they get to choose the angle, and that's why we need more people out there who are getting more sources. And of course they vilify Fox News, but really Fox News is as close as we have to fair and balanced. And I will agree with you that they tend to be a little bit more to the right, but they certainly aren't as more to the right as MSNBC is to the left.
Well, I think if you look at the primetime lineup and you're like, okay, Brett Bayer's on one and Ed Schultz is on the other, that's not even close.
Exactly.
Bill O'Reilly, is Bill O'Reilly just as ideological as Olbermann? Don't think so.
No.
Greta Van Susteren or Larry O'Donnell, who's coming up here, or the Olbermann replay, who's more, in the middle. Well, that's obvious. So, yeah, I mean, people would say MSNBC is copying Fox. No, they're not. They're really actually going more out to the fringe, or more out to the edge recycling the blogs. I mean, you watch Olbermann and Maddow now, and it's just like, okay, that piece is Talking Points Memo. That's the Huffington Post. That piece over there is Media Matters. And, you can piece the whole thing together as what the liberal blogs put up today.
Right. They're just getting their marching orders from the blogs. So the liberal media and the Arizona story, that's not all that there. You guys follow a lot of things they do, and there's a trend out there. No matter what the issue, we can pick the Arizona immigration deal, we can pick cap and trade, we can pick whatever we want to pick, and the liberal media folks are going to have their agenda going in, and they're going to spin it accordingly, are they not?
I think that's generally the case. Now, one of the things that they do from time to time is they just decide not to cover something.
Right.
For example, the whole debate that the House and the Senate had on cap and trade, the networks really tried very hard to avoid it. Now, maybe their theory was, we don't really want to talk about chlorofluorocarbons. We'd rather talk about Lindsay Lohan in prison. But there's certain stories where their bias, in a certain sense, is just to say, we won't be talking about that issue. So, I mean, there are different forms of bias. There are different ways to spin stories.
Well, it's the sin of omission.
But that spin continues, yeah.
If you omit covering something, that's part of the agenda too.
Yep.
Well, what are we going to do about this, Tim? I mean, we have something. We've teamed up with the folks at TeaPartyHD.com. I don't know whether you've seen this, but they got they put all sorts of reports from around the country, and we're actually soliciting folks from out there and our radio audience to upload things. Of course, we'll check and verify these things when they have stories. But it really, with all the cameras out there, with everything that's going on, we really on the right have an ample opportunity to use the internet to our advantage and really get some good footage and some good. YouTube has really exposed that. And Andrew Breitbart with BigGovernment.com. I know he's got a black eye with the charade thing, but really, they're going in the right direction. We're going to have to go out there and find the information ourselves because we're not going to get it from these folks.
Well, I think it's especially important, again, when cameras come to a Tea Party rally and they're like, well, we're not here to hear the speakers. We're not here to interview the normal, everyday protester. We're looking here to find the fringe. We want to find somebody who's a racist. That's what the newsworthiness is. Now, when the liberal media goes to a liberal protest, let's take this story, the Arizona story. They interview a lady who's with Answer LA, which is part of the Trotskyite Workers' World Party, and they call her, it's a woman from Long Beach.
Right.
They actually interview the fringe and present the fringe as the mainstream, and that's really the truly amazing difference, is that that they would say that one outrageous sign at a Tea Party rally is the news, and I'm sure that these rallies in Arizona, accusing the people who passed this law of being Nazis and so on, we saw earlier in April and early May, they just put that out there. Oh, Nazis, mm-hmm.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
And people start to believe it.
There was no reporter that said, well, that's a little uncivil or unsubstantiated.
Right. They don't care. It fit their agenda.
I didn't see that Jan Brewer was a Nazi. That wasn't she's a Republican, I think.
Well, that's the same thing, Tim, for crying out loud. Don't you know? Republicans are Nazis. Well, you guys cover this in great detail. You cover the media folks out there and what they're doing, and there needs to be a watchdog on them, and you guys do that. Give the folks the website they can go to there, Tim.
Well, we're here at mrc.org, where I put this media reality check study, and of course, we have a blog called newsbusters.org.
Right, good stuff, and we refer to it often. So mrc.org and newsbusters.org. Tim Graham from the Media Research Center. Appreciate it very much.
Oh, me too, thanks.